Hi there, I'm Beth. I like to tinker in shoemaking for my dolls, and I've shared some of my process before. I even released my own free pattern for making smart doll shoes with a video tutorial if you haven't seen it already. Between projects, I've been trying out some longer laced up boots, trying to combine a leather upper with 3D printed soles. And I hadn't quite finished that experiment when Choo released the STL files and sewing pattern for his own smart doll boots. Soon as I had a chance, I gave them a try, making a pair of the laced boots, but altering my use of the pattern to suit the materials I already had on hand. I'd much rather use what I have or recycle than go and buy new. I was blown away by the responses online when I shared my pictures of my first pair, and even more so when Danny himself liked, commented and shared my boots. Lots of people then asked if I would make a video about how I made them, so here we are. Now I'll say as a disclaimer that I did not use the patterns as intended. I'm not a cobbler, I'm not an expert, just a hobbyist having fun. I make do with what I had access to at the time. You'll find the files you need on the Smart Doll website. I'll put links in the description. We started by 3D printing the shoe lasts and the shoe soles. If you can't print these yourself, you can buy the soles from the Smart Doll site too. Print and cut the pattern pieces for the laced boots. Everything should be printed at 100% scale. You'll see the pieces I actually used here, labelled as lining. And I created one new piece for the buck, which is basically the piece he provides with the seam allowance cut off. I was fortunate to have been given this leather to use by my mum. It's all swatches or samples from a furniture shop, and it was going to go in the bin if she hadn't asked for them. I have a lot of them still to use. They are limited in size though. I couldn't quite get two of each piece to fit all on one sheet, so I'll be making my boots dual coloured. I chose these grey and brown samples, and if you have one, you can use a sharp awl tool to score around the template pieces, making the dots too, before cutting out. The sole pieces will be cut out of cereal box cardboard. I opted to use a white gel pen for the rest of my outlines as it will wipe off easily. I cut out all my pattern pieces. Maybe the most specialist equipment I do have are these hole punching pliers. This pair is advertised as jewellery iron hole punch pliers. They're perfect for making hand stitching holes without using a hammer. I use them to mark these dots. The other is this Draper hole punch. It has a range of sizes and I'll use this to punch out the eyelet holes. Mine are 6 or 7 millimeters on the outside. I would recommend you use smaller ones though. I did also buy this leather burnishing cream. I got mine on Amazon. It's called Tokonol and it smooths out the fluffy side of the leather and finishes the raw edges nicely. I use a makeup sponge to apply it to the edges that will be visible before I stitch them down. Once it's nearly dried, I'll rub or burnish it. I don't have a proper tool for this, so I used a wooden thread reel instead. I sanded grooves into it, and for ultimate laziness, I attached it to my Dremel. The rotating friction action polishes and rounds out the raw edges. It makes a big difference, in my opinion. I go round the rest of the edges that'll be showing, and also use a thick knitting needle to burnish the underside of the leather too, since it's quite fluffy. Here I've joined the toe and the tongue pieces, with brown upper thread and white in the bobbin. I have a heavy-duty sewing machine which sews leather no problem, but you could perhaps hand sew this instead. I forgot to sew round the tongue here. I should have done that first. Once they're both done, I attach the heel pieces next. I make use of the registration marks that I poked through earlier and put a temporary stitch in to hold them together as I sew. Once stitched in place, I trim away the excess leather from inside. I always try to reduce bulkiness in miniatures, and I didn't think 2 layers of leather would shape well for me later. I'm also careful to tie my thread ends together, so nothing comes apart when I'm stretching things later. Next, I stitch round the outer edges. I look out my eyelets and install them using the pliers that came with them. Now I can join the front and back halves of each boot. I refer to the pattern pieces and can see exactly where they should overlap. The other pattern piece also shows where to sew. Once one side is attached, bring the other half round like this to sew the other side. I marked where I plan to stitch in white gel pen and align these right under my presser foot before sewing. I went back and forth a few times at the start here, and again will tie off my thread ends. I pull the upper thread through to the inside to knot it too. I repeat this for the others. they're really taking shape now, so I bring in the soles and the lasts, as well as my glue. I don't have a proper leather glue, so I make do with super glue gel. I have a good fabric glue, but I really want a fast and strong bond. Making sure I have the right soles for each foot, I put the last into the boot. I like to loosely add the laces at this point too. I make sure they're not pulled too tight and add water to the inner toe. This helps the leather stretch and, once dry, hold its shape. I adjust the overlapping leather so it's roughly even and put the cardboard sole on the last. I will apply glue to the outer edge of the sole and the outer edge of the leather on just the front half for now. Then I tuck over the edges, creating pinches in the leather as I go. I think I had 3 big pinches in my first pair, so these look a little square in the toe to me now. Once I have the front half stuck down, I repeat this for the heel and back half. The edge of my boot is sitting flush with the top of the last. I make a note of this so I can try to make the second boot the same height. I repeat the same steps for the second boot and now use a sharp scalpel to cut away the folded excess leather. I try to cut away all the bumpy parts to leave an even layer. I do a quick test fit of the sole, then repeat for the other boot. Before attaching the sole, I fill in the centre gap with scrap leather, again to try to make all the surface even for the glue to grip to. I repeat for the other boot, then prepare to glue on the sole. I put my glue around the inner lip, then roughly around the rest of the surface, before firmly pushing in the boot, toe first. I pushed out a little glue but wipe it off quickly and push the heel in firmly too. Then I hold everything tightly while the glue dries. After a few minutes, I gently removed the last so I could push specific little areas down with my finger, just doing my best to get everything touching. Then I repeat for the other sole. And that's my new pair of boots finished. As I say, it's not how the pattern is supposed to be used. I will try out the zip-up Takashin boots and make a properly lined pair of these boots sometime too. Oh, one more tip for you. Since the boots are intentionally oversized compared to the feet, you might notice empty space in the toe. I decided to push a cotton ball into each boot to help the toes hold their shape and fit better, so you might want to try that too. Well, thank you Danny for these amazing resources. We love to play with these patterns. I am desperate to try out the beer girl dress and the sequoia jacket patterns too. I just need open zips and time. Christmas beckons and it's getting busy here. Please let me know what you think of my boots. Have you made a pair yourself or do you plan to? I do hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you again soon. Bye!